right, guys. There we go. Going to do a little ice fishing report here. Ice conditions report. Got a couple guys coming on tonight. Hopefully Dax is coming on, and Blake, I think, might come on too. How's it going, guys? Anthony. Oh, nice to see you here. Just get some camera angles a little dialed in. Hey, Tommy Hicks, how you doing? There's Dax. Just hopping on here. Hey, you guys on YouTube too, how's it going? You will be able to hear Dax audio, but you won't see him, but he's going to be on here in a second. Hey, Nicole. How's it going, everybody? There's Dax. How's it going, man?
Good, how are you?
Good. Well, we finally got some decent travel conditions out there, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's so much nicer now.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if it's good or bad, to be honest with you. There's going to be a little bit more traffic this weekend, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nice weather and good ice. Definitely people are going to be out. You know, people have been chomping at the bit to get out there. So you're right. It'll be a little busier, but man, it sure is nice to put the wheeler on the ice and just take off and not worry about slush for once. Oh, it's been just a crazy year. But even underneath that good ice now, we're still seeing a lot of crappy kind of candled waterlogged ice. So definitely not vehicle time yet.
There's people that are doing it, but I'm not gonna.
No, me either. All right, we got Blake Tollefson hopping on here too. So been a while since we've had all three of us on.
Yeah.
Hey, Blake.
How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing tonight?
Not too bad.
Good. Finally, we were just talking about the ice conditions and how much better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I haven't been out probably nearly as much as either of you guys, but when I was out last weekend, things were fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's pretty much like driving on a parking lot compared to what we had.
Yeah, the week before that, I buried the wheeler, so it's much better.
Yeah. I was out on Monday, and it was just you could go everywhere, no problem.
It's good.
Yeah.
Dax, what's your take on the case study you posted? What case study did you post?
Barotrauma and deep water fish in the wintertime.
Oh, interesting. Okay. What was the study? What was the result?
I should have. I just caught it as I was coming home. I didn't fully read it, but I'm guessing it's people that are in the. Well, I guess it's the basin, the deepest part of the lake, catching fish while you're out there. And I didn't read it, but I would assume that the results show that even selective harvest, you're still killing every fish you catch.
Yeah.
So
probably we can all attest to this. I would say probably max depth in the winter, depending on lakes, I would say 25 feet, and probably below that would be considered the kill zone, I would guess.
I'm right there with you. It's like 24, 25 feet and then much below that, and it's basically every fish is dead.
Yeah. I mean, you can, when I was younger, and we probably all did it, you got a deep water crappie spot, and you don't want to keep the 8 and 9 inchers, so you reel them up really slow, and then you hope for an 11 or a 12 incher. And I did that on lakes over in Polk County, and I personally, didn't think that I was doing much harm, but then listening to in-fisherman guys and going to Thorne Brothers, and now that I'm older, if I do choose to fish that deep, whatever I catch is going to go in the bucket, and then I'll move shallower later. But this particular lure, I haven't really had to fish deep because, we all know that there's been very little pressure around our houses, and so I've generally fished pretty shallow, but I would assume the survey is pretty accurate with what we're talking about. If you do decide to go out there, every fish that you hook generally is going to die. So if you plan on going out that deep, you might as well just keep what you catch and just go try something else. But
Yep. So I actually just had a conversation with Jeremy Smith about this a few weeks ago. And basically what the DNR Minnesota is doing right now is actually testing to see kind of where that magic number is. So they did the Linders did a big kind of just a case study with the DNR. They kept 50 fish. And basically what they found was a third of those fish died. A third of those fish were close to dead, and a third lived. So basically, your chances are most likely that the fish is going to die.
And what depth was that?
They were in a 40-foot basin, and that was 30 feet of water.
Okay.
Is where most of those fish were at.
Yeah. And you can tell some of them look all right, like, and you can let them go and they seem fine. But I tell you what, everyone I keep from that depth, you lay them on the ice and their blood vessels literally pop. Like they just start bleeding after they lay there for a while. So, yeah, it's crazy. We did have Tommy Hicks mentioned some good advice in the islands. I just want to say people should be careful this weekend. The ice out there was made in 1 week with minus 15 or more temps, and it's very brittle, cracked up in many areas. Yeah, I agree. That ice out there is not what I would call good ice, even though it's clear ice. There's a lot of movement, especially with these warm temps too, and there's cracks opening up. There's heaves that you got to be careful with. Like, it is not beginner ice in the islands right now at all. So I may be fishing on Lake Superior this weekend, but I'm not going to venture out into the islands at all. It's just not. It's not going to be a good year for that for most people. I would recommend staying inside the bay, or close to shore. So that's good advice, Tommy. And then Fisherman Sam said that's the article Dax posted earlier. All fizzed fish died, which is very interesting because in the ocean, you fizz fish all the time when you drag them up out of deep water, and it works, but apparently not for crappies.
Well, it just, to me, it's interesting because you hear the fizzing topic, but nobody's ever going to know. Yeah, the fish swims away, but you would never, ever know. You might tell yourself, oh, yeah, it worked, and that fish swam away. But unless you do a study, you're not going to have a clue. So,
yeah,
I think it's more of it helps the fisherman's conscious than anything. That's really all fizzing is. But
no, that's a good point.
I've bass fished for a long time, and luckily where we live, we collectively don't have to fish very deep to catch bass. But if I were to have to fizz one, I would have no idea how to do it.
Same.
Yeah, I only would because I've done it in the ocean for grouper and stuff like that. If you have the little tool, it's actually pretty easy to hit the air bladder and it just basically eliminates all that pressure. But to me, it doesn't make sense because the blood vessels in the fish's head and like around its gills are popping. It's not just the air bladder expanding, keeping it from swimming down. That's the problem,
Well, and the whole point of the air bladder is so that they can regulate where they're at. So if the air bladder is deflated, they're just going to sink to the bottom.
Yeah, they can reinflate it. It's like a very small needle, so it's like opens up a pathway and then it closes back up as soon as you pull the needle out. But yeah, it's probably a relatively ineffective technique at keeping fish alive. I mean, even if they're injured in the ocean, they're going to get eaten. Like if they look at all like they're possibly not going to swim away super fast, everything just eats them. So I'm guessing most of those fish get eaten. That's my guess.
Probably.
Yeah, you can. We're all on the computer, so you can tell when there's a trophy post going on. You can just see the eyeballs bulging out of all the 9 to 11 inch crappies that people have been taking pictures of.
Oh yeah.
For like the last month, and you don't even have to hold it close to the camera. You can see it. So it's like, well, we know where you were, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have one photo out there that I just posted from Monday, and that sucker's eyes are just popping out of its head. So, I mean, you can tell I was basin fishing 100%. But I caught 5 crappies and I quit. So, and 2 of them were 8 inches, and 2 of them were 12 to 13s, and one was like a 7-inch dink, and I kept all of them, and then I quit. So.
Yeah, that works.
Yep. It was a cool bite. I was chasing around with the Panoptics, and all the small fish were in giant schools, and they were up higher, but the bigger fish were in like pairs, threes, and singles, and you had to just chase them and chase them and chase them to catch up with them. But I did catch a couple of dandies.
I hear that, dude. You got I think the Panoptics, if you got enough friends, I mean, living where I live, I don't understand. I mean, I understand why fish live in areas because there's food, right? But the chain is so bland with cover. You know, it's like fishing in the Walmart parking lot. You know, you got a little rise here, or you got some cribs here. I mean, I don't know if there's a rock pile I could think of. Maybe one. It's 90, I would say it's 75% basin from Cameron to my house, and then, you know, Pokegama and Lake Chautauqua are a little deeper, but I don't understand why the fish move as much as they do, especially this year, with like little to no pressure at all.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking the same thing.
I mean, there hasn't been anybody up in your area all for a good month and a half.
No, basically nobody.
So why are the fish? They'll pull up in an area on Sunset. Obviously, we've all seen that bite, you know. But I don't understand. Like during the day, if you take 7 footsteps, how do you lose them on Panoptics? I mean, what in the hell?
I mean, they're constantly moving down there. It's crazy. Hey, we had a JB Walleye said, great to see St. Croix Rods legend Blake Tollefson. Apparently, you're a legend now.
I think he's mistaken. I just use legend rods. So.
Use the legend series.
Yeah.
And Weldon says, Blake, I met a Tollefson in Nevada. He didn't know you, but had relatives in Minnesota. That's interesting.
Okay. And there's a lot of Tollefsons in the Midwest between Minnesota and Wisconsin. So.
And Water and Ice says, hey, from YouTube and Wildlife Perspective. And Stuart Schindler said, decent ice in the bay last weekend. Saw one brave soul in a truck on the ice. It was pretty tough fishing out there. I got skunked. Yeah, welcome to Lake Superior. It can happen. But
it happened. Yeah, and I luckily it happened. I mean, I live across the street from like the most purple lake I've ever seen in my life, and I think I have a little bit of knowledge in my brain. I can go out to the Chautauqua chain and do very well, and I can go out the next day and fish those things. I rarely do, but if I did, I would probably not fish. The crappy part about this chain is there's no weeds. It's a puzzle, you know. It's like it's worse than chess.
Yeah.
Chess, but I just don't understand what drives those fish to move as much as they do. There's a little microscopic bugs like when you drill a hole. Oh, you got them right at the top of the hole. I mean, I see those. I mean, we don't have an abundance of perch, like small juvenile perch, like the Hayward area. We have a solid minnow base by any means. I doubt we have any type of aquatic bug like copies or any type of insect larva at all. I've never seen it, like the Hayward. So I don't understand. I mean, they're all nice and healthy. I don't know what their food source is. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, it's probably mostly bugs. I mean, probably bloodworms and zooplankton. I mean, for the most part, it's especially out there in the basin.
because most of that chain is pretty muddy, isn't it, Dax?
Yeah.
Packed with them, even walleyes, even bigger fish. So that lake is basically endless supplies of bloodworms, I would guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've never, living on the west side of the state and living in Minnesota, and Blake could probably attest to this. I had never fished a lake in my life or a chain for the bogs, like living bogs that sink in the fall because they lose their oxygen level, and then they riot spring, and then people hit them with their boats, and I'm like, I'd seen it on the flowage, but they're more islands because the bogs are so big.
They're big.
It's just it's a cool place. It's very healthy. It's hard for me to. I mean, I like going there. It's it's literally a minute from my house, but it's just a head scratcher every time even when you do good, you're like, how come I didn't do good 2 days ago? Like, what the heck?
Yep. Yeah, my parents' pond was a bog pond. It was a beaver dammed creek, basically. It used to be a trout stream, and the beavers backed it up, and it covered like 3 or 4 acres. And there was these 2 bogs out in front of the house, and they would completely disappear in the fall. They would sink right below the water, and it would be just open water. And then in the spring, they would pop up, and they would cover half the area in front of my parents' house in the summertime. I think it's just from the decomposition and stuff that the gases push them back up again. But that was a pretty cool place to grow up because the pond was there long enough that fish started to take hold in there, and we had largemouth bass in there. We had perch in there, big perch. We had crappies in there, and we had bluegills and a ton of hybridizing bluegills because there was a lot of green sunfish and a lot of regular bluegills in there. And they started spawning together, and we had all these green sunfish bluegill hybrids in there for a while, and they were super fun to catch. Like, they were very aggressive and super fun to catch through the ice. But then the beaver dam went out one year, and everything got washed out, and basically that was the end of it. So hasn't been any fish in there for probably 10 years now.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. It does, but maybe it'll come back again. I mean, there's still some fish in there. There's just not enough water to hold much anymore. It's pretty low. Just a channel going through there now. And there was pike in there too, actually. They were starting to get pretty good size. And nobody knew there was fish in there. We were the only ones who ever fished it that I know of ever.
Was there many other people that lived on the lake?
There was like 3 or 4 different landowners that touched it.
Oh.
Yeah, but no one ever figured it out. So
it's a nice little thing to have to yourself.
Oh, it's so cool.
Hey, you don't find that anymore.
Hey, D. Pingle, how's it going?
Yeah.
Pingle, yeah, that kid catches a lot of fish. I've been watching his stuff on Instagram, and he's legit.
Yeah, he does that. It's Drew and his brother. He's got a brother and then a dad, Josh. I'm trying brother's name. It's Drew and Caden Pingle, I believe, and then I've talked to them 2 boys quite a bit. They're from the Austin area at Master Angler deal, which is really cool.
It's super cool. Yeah. I would guess that Deep Hingle there probably has more master angler fish than I've got as far as species spread, and I don't think I could top it right now with the as many as he's got on his list, which in 1 year, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, I think he's got Drew. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he got 26.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. He said I won the master angler program. I have no doubt about that. Probably by a long shot.
Yeah, him and his dad and his brother, they travel all over. I mean, I had him come up to the Webb Lake area. Oh, it was 27. Sorry, Drew, 27.
But who's counting, right?
Yeah, I had him go up to the Webb Lake area and try to catch a jumbo seed. They missed it by like a 1/4 inch.
Was it 10 inches for pumpkin seed or 9?
9 incher.
9.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big pumpkin seed,
That's a huge,
especially
pumpkin seed.
purebred, like non-hybridized.
Well, there's a couple lakes up by you that got some mags on them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say there's one lake up there that got some giant pumpkin seeds.
yep, and they're pumpkin shaped too.
Yes.
There's orange is Halloween too, and they're just green and they glow
They're pretty awesome.
and they hit that. I mean, you think you got a bass on until they make 17 circles around your transducer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're literally like shaped like this,
Mhm.
like a circle.
Yes, they are.
They're pretty cool.
But now that the conditions have changed, I want to be up in your neck of the woods. I think I don't want to not fish the Chautauqua because I know it's still. I mean, it's never going to be bad. I don't think, but there's a few lakes on this I haven't even thought about until now.
Yeah, I mean it's opened up the doors to a lot of places now. Like the place I fished Monday, there was no way I was getting to that spot the week before. Not a chance. Not a chance. With anything, even a snowmobile. You wouldn't get there. But now you can go right to it. I literally just put her in fifth gear and flew right over to it. So
yeah,
pretty
well,
nice.
Now that the lakes have changed, Blake and I can stop looking at everyone's pictures from Long Lake off of Highway 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many crappies got killed out of there last month?
A lot.
Holy crying out loud!
Too easy to get to.
Yeah, it's way too easy to get to. I don't spend any time there hardly ever anymore just because of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of catch and killing going on there, and a lot of famous Instagram folks that are on there. I mean, they're not famous, but you know what I mean. It's like
Instagram famous, like me.
All right, we know where you are. It's 8 to 11 inches. You might get one that's over 12. Okay, you don't have to long arm them. We know how big they are. It's 15 minutes from my house. It's whatever. Just a basin fish. But whatever. Now we got every lake north of Serona that we can all fish. And maybe we can start sharing some info. I mean, we got 2 months left. I mean, we got enough.
Possibly. I mean, if we don't get any colder weather, if that ice below doesn't freeze through all the way, I don't know. It ain't gonna last long.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose once that top layer starts to melt,
it'll be gone. Yeah, that stuff underneath is junk. Like there won't be any late ice fishing if that doesn't get froze through.
No.
So I'm hoping it does, but.
I mean, we've drilled 1 million holes, and when you drill a hole in hard ice, you can see the rings.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, hard, packed rings of ice as you go down. And whether you're doing battery powered or gas or whatever you're doing, you just pull the trigger and it just punches through. There's no hesitation. You hit a couple pockets of heavy stuff, but it's nothing solid.
No, it's like the first top 6 inches. Then your drill just goes.
Yep.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, most of the lakes around me still 6 inches of actual good ice. The rest is just frozen shit on top and then snow.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think there's guys putting boats in on the North Shore already, trolling for cohos and stuff. I saw a guy was out in front of Duluth last week. He caught couple cohos and one big 31-inch brown right in front of Duluth there out of his boat.
So what you're saying is there's no eel pout fishing this winter?
No, there will be nobody on the ice on that part of Lake Superior this year. I can pretty much call that, I think, at this point. Yeah. Even like by the islands there where Tommy was talking about out in the Ashland Bayfield area, like that might only last another week or 2. I mean, with this weather, it's just that's going to go pretty fast. You're going to have 2 weeks of fishing out by Madeline, and that might be it. So,
and you had north wind today, so that probably didn't help either.
And then tomorrow, is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow or Saturday, blowing southwest at like 25 to 30. So anything that's broke up is going to blow out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird year.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we were talking about that a couple weeks ago or whatever. I can't remember a year that we've had like this in a long time.
No, but you know, the other thing that was good, at least for the first half of it, was the fishing was super good and the fish were really aggressive. But after that last cold front, I don't know if you've noticed this too, but since that last big cold front we had there, the fishing has slowed tremendously. Like the fish have gone negative big time in the last 2 weeks or so.
I mean, trout fishing has been abnormally tough. Like, I've been catching fish, but not like you'd see 10 fish come in and just come in, look at it, leave.
Mm-hmm.
Where normally at least half of those would eat.
Yep.
So I don't know what the deal is.
That's been the same with everything else too. Like normally I can catch bass if I can find them. I have not been able to basically catch any. They just come in and look at the bait and leave. They just won't hit. And even pike are coming in on shiners, like half of them won't eat. They just turn around and leave.
It's been weird how, like, you know, I go to work at 5:30. Well, I suppose we all get up early and go to work, but it felt like, for me, traveling to work for what seemed like, say, a week and a half, felt like there was a full moon every.
Yeah, I know. For like the last 4 or 5 days, didn't it?
It was bright and it was vibrant. There was no clouds, and then the high pressure system was here for a legitimate 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would affect a deep fish or shallow fish or any fish. I mean, that was intense. Like,
yeah,
it was full moon, like bow hunting season where you want to stay out an extra half an hour early. Like, you know, it was like bright and just like staring at it as I'm driving to work. You know, it's on my left side as I'm going north, and I'm like, didn't I see that like a week ago? I'm like, what is like the new moon? I'm like, what is? You know, you go out on the roof. I have to go on the roof for work, and I'm wearing sunglasses, and it's like piercing my eyes. It's so bright, and the fish are just like, oh, we're not having that.
Well, plus we had like 3 sunny days in the last month and a half before that. It was just cloudy every single day. So it probably just shocked the fish, especially with that 20 below weather we had blowing out that we hadn't had the whole season either. You know, I'm sure that was a big shock. And then that tons of high pressure after that and just a huge weather change and full moon on top of it. That'll do it.
Absolutely.
So it should be starting to heat up again here in the next week or so, I would say. You know, hopefully as we come out of this full moon period and get a little bit more different systems coming through to shake things up again. But it was definitely tougher fishing.
Oh, yeah. The bite windows on Chetek chain shrank to about a 40-minute window of bite in the morning and in the afternoon. During the day, I would basically just go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you watch any of the live I did with Nick Linder?
Yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah.
Like that day was insanely negative. I've never seen fish that negative in my entire life under the ice. It was like they wouldn't even come over to investigate the bait. They would just swim past. And there was thousands of fish around us, and we caught very few. Especially bass. Like there were so many bass around, and we could not get them to go on. Even the little shiners or little fatheads, or like they would stare at them, and once in a while they would open their mouth and maybe nip at it, but we never caught a single fish on a set line the entire 6 hours. And there was fish around them the entire time wasn't a second there wasn't fish around those baits, and they never ate them for 6 hours.
Oh, yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Crazy.
You know it's bad when you got 2 red spikes and a 3mm tungsten, and you set the hook, and you got 1 red spike left. I mean, it's almost like they're nipping at the bottom one because they know the top one's closer to the hook. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's like you know your spring bobber barely moves, and you kind of just want to put pressure on it, but you don't want to commit to the hook set yet. And you're like, ugh.
Yeah, like even Monday, I had the camera down and I was watching the bluegills, and they weren't even big ones. These were like dumb 6-inchers, and they wouldn't even hit. I'll bait with 2 spikes and a waxy on it. They wouldn't even hit it. They would just look at it. Like dumb little bluegills wouldn't even bite, you know. And like pike were coming in on the camera, just chasing the minnow, but not hitting it. I mean, I caught half a dozen pike, and then I caught those fish in the basin once I got out there. But like I saw 15 bass on the camera, and none of them hit anything. You know, it was just super negative again.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have it all. Now we got great travel conditions, and the fish don't bite. So every time I had to slog out there through the slush and pull a sled behind me through 8 inches of snow, I smashed them. But I tell you, that's ice fishing.
No kidding.
So I'd like to get on some walleyes here before the end of the season. I've only really targeted walleyes once, and that was on the St. Louis River super early. So I really haven't gotten to much walleye water at all yet.
Most of the good walleye water was just so terrible in terms of conditions. I mean,
Yep.
I didn't even consider going up to Hayward once this year so far, just because there's been no point. I think I would have buried the sled. I don't think it would have mattered what I had. I would have just been pissed off the whole day.
Yeah, I know plenty of people who did bury their sleds up there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have not until I was up by Caleb on New Year's Eve, and I have not crossed Rice Lake since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went up and fished with Caleb once this year, and I haven't been anywhere even close since.
No, me neither. I've been driving across the street for a month and working on a month and a half now, and I've been pretty fortunate. We got so much snowmobile traffic that I've been able to use the wheeler. But yeah, I haven't put my 4-wheeler on the trailer all winter.
Yeah, I did get out 2 weekends ago on a smaller lake, and it was good enough to get out. And then this Monday it was perfect. Just it was so nice to be able to go wherever you wanted and not worry about it. So definitely a lot more has opened up now. If you guys got a machine, you can finally get around. But I don't know how long that's going to last. We'll see. There's no cold weather in the forecast.
No, we got chances of rain, and then we got a little bit of what's that next week, midweek? There's a little frontal stuff coming through, I think.
For a couple days, and then it goes right back up again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be a early ice out probably. I don't know how early, but the way it's looking,
That's right.
Pretty good chance. And Blake, I know, is fine with that.
I'm not going to be mad about that.
No, I'm fine with that. I mean, I wouldn't mind cranking up the old Panoptics on the boat and getting out early. I mean, that 1 year when my daughter would have been 8 months old, you guys remember, it was the year that St. Patty's Day was like 90.
Oh, yeah. It was 87 or something on St. Patrick's Day. That was crazy.
I had my daughter out on Wapagasset in Amory there on April 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole entire lake, which is almost 2,000 acres, was, when I got on the lake, it was just a nice early morning. I got on the lake and the water temp was like 44. Went to a little back bay with a little bit of sun. We got a whole bunch of copies. And then when we left, I think it was 54.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, it was 2 years ago that I ran into you when I had Al in there with me that one day. I didn't quite run into you. You were fishing the same lake I was fishing with Al that one day. But that was April like 12th.
Yep.
That was early April.
Was it first year of bass season or second year?
Second year.
Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't early. That was for that lake. That was
for that
really
lake especially. Like that was super early. And the water temp was already in the low 40s. I was upper 30s on that lake, but we found 40s in some of the other lakes. I mean, they were all open in early April that year,
Yeah.
Yep.
which was pretty wild. And Al was pretty thrilled. he doesn't ice fish at all anymore. So
No.
I wouldn't. Doesn't he go? Does he still go to Arizona? Then?
yeah, he's in Arizona right now, and he usually takes a little trip over to Florida to fish with James over there.
Sure.
And but as soon as he can get to South Dakota and start fishing those prairie lakes in the spring, he's out there.
Man,
Yeah.
there are some fungus fish over there, and they don't have a season.
Mm-hmm.
He can tie on all of his brand new Rapalas and just catch pre-spawn giant smallmouth.
Yep. And walleyes and pike all mixed together.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool area. I'd like to get over there and try it someday.
And if those ropes weren't so damn rough, I'd probably that way.
Well, he told me, was it last year? Yeah, last year. His trailer, something happened with his trailer on his brand new boat, and he had to leave it at the landing overnight because the road was so rough or something like that, and they couldn't get it out. And he's like on the reservation, and it was pretty rough going. He said it turned into quite an ordeal. But then you're in the middle of nowhere out there. He's like, we were 100 miles from the nearest town.
Somebody come out and fix your trailer. It's just not happening.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They had to find somebody to help him the next day, and took him half the day to get the thing out of there. Oh, I know what it was. His trim quit working. It trimmed down and it wouldn't trim up. It was the boat. So they were stuck. They couldn't pull the trailer out because the trim was down.
Yeah.
Jeez. I think I'd just be sleeping in my boat. That's all I had. I don't know if I could leave it.
Oh man, and Al Linder's boat's that's probably the first time it's been in the water.
Right.
He gets a new one every year, so oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Gnarly terrain in that northeast South Dakota and like that middle part of North Dakota. I mean, it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Rough. It's they don't have the maintenance team like we do in Wisconsin or Minnesota. It's not the same.
No, and it says low maintenance road. It ain't a road. It's like it looks like basically wild prairie at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fun state to play in, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'd never want to live there, but man, it's a cool place to go hunt birds and do some fishing, and it's cool. Both of them, North and South Dakota, are pretty cool states.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be over on both, catch some big perch and catch some bass, and yeah, it's a cool area for sure. It's nice to be there for a few days, and nice to come home and see some trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you guys follow any of the fish donkey tournaments this year? Were you in any of them? The bigger ones?
I was not. No.
Okay.
I saw some giant fish that people had posted. I think some of those came from the fish donkey tournaments, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. The one crappie that won the clam trap attack was 17 3/4, I want to say, or right at 18. Just a absolute giant crappie. And they had almost a 16-inch perch that won the perch division, which was from Cascade, of course.
Oh, well, makes sense. It doesn't count. It's like
I know
30-inch walleye on Lake Erie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, it's crazy how one fishery can be that good. Like, how do you duplicate that anywhere else? It's so unreal how big those fish get. And I don't know if it's gonna last, because the way the pressure is there, I just don't see how it could. I mean, it never was discovered until 3 years ago, basically. Like, they didn't even know what they had there. There was one bait shop in the entire area, and they barely sold any ice fishing stuff. Like, they didn't know what they had until a few years ago.
I guess the only saving grace is it's pretty huge from what I've heard.
It is big. Yeah, it is big. But those perch fisheries, it seems like once you start taking the biggest fish out, they never recover. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but around here, if you take the top end perch out of a system, it's like it never comes back. I don't know.
I mean, that's bluegills. That's very well documented. If you take out the biggest males in a system, it will kill the population in
Mhm.
terms of size structure. So
Well,
I don't know
Blake,
if there's been studies like that on perch or not, but
Blake
Yeah.
and I know full well, growing up, going to Mille Lacs, we know you take 10 million jumbo perch out of one lake, they ain't coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And Blake lived right next to it, and I wasn't far away either. And I would go, and when Blake and I were fishing it when we were younger, and that was that was probably 20 years ago, when Tony Roach was doing all his perch patrol, or not perch patrol, but perch. Tony Roach would do a perch school on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
He would teach people how to ice troll, and he had
Yep.
cheap rep with Northland at the time.
Yep.
Obviously in fishermen. So he's taken 40, 60, 80 people out, which, good for him. But then you got 40, 60, or 80 people learning from the best ice driller on planet Earth how to chase down Mille Lacs perch. And they all got friends. Right? So
Right. Yeah, it's so true.
that perch bite didn't last very long, maybe a decade, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had what's the one at the end of the year, Blake? The big one.
fishing for ducks.
Yeah, the fishing for ducks was
Mhm.
a perch contest, and they had a perch extravaganza, and that would literally bring in thousands of people, to catch perch, and then it's almost a duplicate of Red Lake. It just didn't. It was a little longer on Mille Lacs, but
Mm-hmm. Like as far as the crappies on Red Lake. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was. I mean, in terms of Red Lake, that was a very short-lived thing.
Yeah, it just you can't be taking all those top end fish out and expect it to continue like that. I mean, those were all super healthy spawning fish, big size. There was so much adult fish and everybody was keeping them. Like that was the crazy part. Like people would go there to keep 16-inch crappies. Like that was their goal, was to bring back a giant bucket of these huge fish.
Yeah.
It seems insane to me now, but
Yeah, I mean, but you look back 5 decades ago and look at the fish that people kept. I mean, part of it is people didn't know. I mean,
yeah.
it's hard to fault people that long ago. In this day and age, there's no excuse for it.
No.
But 20 years ago,
hmm
people didn't know what that would do.
It's crazy that was
It
only
wasn't.
20 years ago, that we
Yeah.
didn't understand the fisheries that well.
yeah,
But-
the first time I went to Red Lake was 98. The spring of 97, 98, 99. And then the year 2000, they had an article in the Star Tribune saying, where should the governor go for opener? I think it was Jesse Ventura, honestly.
Mhm.
I don't know my governors very well, but I'm pretty sure it was him. And I said, should he go to Mille Lacs or should he go to Red Lake? And then 3 years later, I went back to Red Lake and I caught one crappie and 27 walleyes or something. It was a lot, but
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
6 years that I knew about it, I caught fish in 3 of the 6, and then I went back a few years later and I caught one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And there
it's
was
crazy.
coming from, I mean, anywhere in the United States, people were going to Red Lake to catch those crappies.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I went there only one time, and it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you needed a 10-inch hole to get those crappies out. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, you put 5 in a bucket, and then you needed to clear out truck space to put the other 10. I was like,
Yeah, that's pretty hard to believe, but it's true. Like it was basically catching lifer crappies one after another for most, fish of a lifetime after fish of a lifetime, just bam, bam, bam. is
Then you fish them like they were walleyes. It was not like fishing for crappies. There was no such thing as a freaking tungsten jig
Nope.
and a waxworm. It was use a walleye spoon in the middle.
Yep,
Totally different deal.
exactly.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah, everybody was using a Swedish pimple or a jig whopper back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or some guys were using jigging wraps too, the bigger jigging wraps. Martin's
Yep.
Fishing says going to the Fox or the Wolf this spring. I don't know. I usually fish the Mississippi if I fish a spring walleye run just because it's close. But I've got a couple buddies who have been fishing the Wolf, and they've been catching some pretty awesome fish down there. I would like to try and get down there and fish the Wolf sometime because there's a sweet mixed bag down there on the Wolf River.
I got to run, guys. Good luck fishing this weekend if you get out.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
All right, take care, Blake.
All right.
Yeah, Martin's Fishing, they seem to be coming back on red. I have seen people getting on some decent schools of crappies there the last, especially this year, but they're not nearly the size. Like there's some 14s, but a 14 was a small fish back then. Like it was a dink compared to the rest of them. But they're kind of 14s like the top end. You might see a 15 here and there, but mostly like 12s is what I'm seeing coming out of red. But they are coming back, which is good. I definitely like to see that.
It's the first time I went was 97. Long story short, we got out there. The guys next to us said, borrow our auger. Only time in my life I'd ever drilled a hole with a Jiffy auger. We drilled 8 10-inch holes. The sun about hit the trees on the west shore, and my Vexler went from 14 to 8 feet, and it was nonstop crappies until we left. And I personally saw 3 crappies that night to the guys that helped us out, and they had an igloo cooler, the red and white one with the tape measure on the top, and they had 4 crappies on the top of that cooler that were 20 inches.
That's just insane. Well, there's Josh Pingle right there. We were just talking about Josh and your incredible fishing legends that you're raising.
Yeah, they were at the ice show Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
Because Drew had just got an invite to be part of the clam team.
Okay. Yeah, I probably just missed them. I was just leaving the Euro Tackle at about that time on Saturday.
Yeah, I think I ran across those guys at about 5:30-ish. We talked for probably about an hour or so, and then I think it closed 7 that night, if I remember correctly. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. I love multi-species fishing, so it's kind of my gig. Like I don't care if it's a silverfish or if it's a pumpkin seed or any kind of color, length, size, thickness. I'm all for all of them. So
absolutely, I'll never turn down a red mark. Never.
Nope. Exactly. The bigger, the better.
That's for sure.
Yeah, there's so much stuff I wanted to try this winter, and of course I'm always running out of time. Like I wanted to try some more basin fishing for predators because I was getting on a pretty good little program earlier this winter, finding some nice pike in the basin and stuff. And man, I know there's some giants out there that you'll never catch them in the weeds, and I'd like to do a little bit more of that, but I just haven't had the time to test it out much further. But I think there's something to it.
Oh gosh, yeah, especially the lake that you and I fish. I personally have not, but my buddy Jaden has caught. Well, since I lived in Chautauqua 7 years, he's caught 3 over 40 on the edge of the basin.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
yeah.
They're chasing the tulipy.
Yep, I definitely believe it.
And you could go out and hunt them fish with one of your lake trout baits. I mean, that would be perfectly fine for one of those fish.
Probably. Yeah, they'd probably eat it. Yep.
Yes, we both have Yes, and you're not blowing up the lake.
Yeah, Sisebagama. I mean, this is a good lake.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got solid fishery, I would say.
If when Caleb's kids get a little older and my daughter's 11, it's a perfect lake to take your children out and relax for the day. You're close to town. There's a lot of there's a lot of really nice crappies out there, and it's very easy to read on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, Sisebagamus. I mean, it's an excellent lake in the boat. Walleyes, they manage the walleyes, they manage the bass, and when Caleb and I were younger, they used to stock it pretty heavy with tiger muskies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always I've been fishing Sisebagama for a long time. It's probably Caleb is the same way. It's got a lot of really nice fish in it. Very, very low pressure in the boat during the boat season.
Yeah, and it's a cool lake because you can catch walleyes all day there, especially up in the weeds. And they'll stick in those thick weed beds all day long, and they're catchable pretty much any time of day, which is kind of, there's not a lot of lakes around that you can have a decent walleye bite, daytime bite, that's fairly consistent. But I've caught walleyes in that lake on spinner baits in 4 feet of water, fishing for bass, you know.
Yeah, and that's a lake where it intrigues Caleb and I because in the area that it's in, it's one of the only stained water lakes over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little darker. It's almost. I suppose it is surrounded by a bog on the west side, so
Yep.
It's got that tannic water to it. So you don't have to fish twilight. I mean, you can, like Caleb said, you can fish during the day and be home for supper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd say the weed line pretty much stops at about 8 feet in that lake, if I remember right. So, you can fish some gravel points and stuff like that, and not have weeds to deal with. And there's some decent smallies in there too. Not a ton. It's not like Round or some of those premier smallie lakes, but there's some decent smallmouth in there.
Yep. Yeah, it's a cool lake. There's beautiful structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole lake is basically structure. I mean, it's a structure factory.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's some really nice panfish in there too.
Yes, there is. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good lake. If you ever try it, was that Martin's fishing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one. Definitely one that Caleb and I would do in the wintertime for sure.
Yeah, I have not ice fished it much. Believe it or not, I pretty much have only fished it in a boat. I think I ice fished it once. It just hasn't been on my map as far as ice fishing. Like, there's so many lakes closer to me. That's the thing, But yeah, I think it's definitely got potential for a good ice fishing lake for sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Gotta watch where you're running your boat in that lake.
Ooh.
There's plenty of rocks and there's plenty of shallow bars and stuff, and they'll sneak up on you.
Yes, they will. Yeah, they'll stop you in your tracks for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to watch the map on that one. And there is some buoys and stuff marking some of the rock piles, but it's definitely got a few dingers to watch out for.
Yes, there is. Yeah, they're not far below the surface either.
Mm-mm. No, but very, very cool lake. Yeah, there's so many unique lakes around here, in this area. Everyone's a little bit different, and fish is a little bit different,
Yeah, and you literally go across the street to Stone Lake.
Yep.
And I was out there multiple times this fall, and I was the only one out there other than the loons. And you can see, 15 feet down on a sunny day.
Oh, it's insanely clear.
You got sandgrass, which is pretty rare, until you go like a little farther north. And you got an abundance of smallmouth, walleyes, and panfish. I'm not familiar if there's muskies in that particular lake or not, but
in Stone,
yeah,
there's no muskies in there, but there is a crap ton of carp, and believe it or not, there's giant sturgeon in there.
I was just going to ask if you'd ever heard of anyone catching sturgeon out there. So,
did you see that sturgeon I caught earlier this year? That was Stone Lake. Yeah, I caught that in Stone Lake.
How far is Sisebagama from Stone Lake? 2 miles?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and totally different fishery. Completely different.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if we go 20 miles north, we go to Lake Namakaga, which is 100% tannic water, 100% multiple bog systems, and then every lake around Namakaga is gin clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everyone.
It's pretty crazy. And like you can go to one and the fish will be acting completely different than the other on the same day.
Yeah.
You know, like they'll be backed up into some shallow, weed bed in 3 feet of water on one lake, and they'll be on an offshore structure on the other lake. And they're 2 miles apart.
Yep.
So
that's another cool little area that, at the bottom of Schwamigan Forest.
yeah, I think that would be considered right at the southern end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all that stuff to the east, there's so many little lakes in there.
Mm-hmm. And they're basically untouched, a lot of those.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. It's cool. My buddy Chad, he's a logger, so he sees all that stuff. Well, obviously Weldon.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Chad and Weldon know each other, but there's so many 120, 150 acre lakes in that area that if you took an actual drive and just looked around, you'd never see a soul.
Mm-mm. No, it's a pretty cool area. Too much to explore. I mean, a guy could have a whole summer and just check new lakes every day, and you'd never even touch half of them.
You wouldn't even get through your county.
No.
I mean, you wouldn't. There's people on that may or may not have heard me say this, but if you go from Spooner to Siren, let's say Webster, and then you go Webster to Minot, there's 200 and some lakes in that 40 square mile area.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. There's a lot. I know it's got to be 150 at least.
Oh yeah. I would say easily.
There's no way you'd touch all of them in one summer.
Nope.
You'd run, like you said, you'd run out of time.
Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty cool area. And there's all these little nuances to every one of them, like in the changing seasons, everything changes. Like there's an endless amount of stuff to learn, which is awesome in my opinion. That's what I like about this area. It's like you never get bored. Like just go try a new lake and try and learn it, and all of a sudden you got a whole new challenge.
Right. Yeah. And you go 3 miles south of your house and you got Shell Lake, which is 1,000% different than any lake north of your house.
Yeah, it fishes like a prairie lake, basically, in a lot of ways.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Deep. Very little weeds other than the airport bay, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then pretty much nomadic fish for the rest of the 800 acre lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of basin in that lake.
Yes, there is.
Yep.
And then you come across Highway 53 and you go from my house to Hayward, and every lake is 7 miles.
Mm-hmm. And it's all structure, and it's all big basins and rock points and weed lines, and the whole lake is practically structure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's pretty cool graphic that we get to choose from every day.
And the crazy thing to me about that chain is that some of those lakes are clear and some of them aren't, and they're all connected.
All of them. Yeah.
How does that even work?
I don't know. You got Big Shatak connected to Red Cedar and Hemlock and Balsam,
Mm-hmm.
under Rice Lake, and then you got
Balsam is clear.
Gin clear.
Like it's insanely clear. And then you go right into Red Cedar and it's like 5 feet.
Yeah.
Of Viz, and it's red stained, and then you go into further down and it's green.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I know it's and Big Shatak is, I would say it's pretty close to Shatak. It's it's green in the summer, which is not a bad thing. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's just got more algae in it or whatever, and it's shallow. Both lakes are pretty shallow.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go right in the middle of them, and you got Balsam is 50 feet, maybe 60 feet deep.
Yep.
Which literally is right underneath Big Shatak.
Mm-hmm.
Right connected to Birch Lake, I guess. And then, you know, Red Cedar is 4, 5, 6 miles long, and you go to Hemlock, and Rice Lake max depth is probably 14 feet, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got like an 18-foot hole in it. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go to Chautauqua, which is max depth is 18, 19 feet.
And then Long is connected to all those as well. And that's what, 80 some feet almost in some of the basins on Long.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a pretty diverse area.
Yeah.
Balsam's kind of I fished it only a couple times, but I actually caught walleyes in the trees in there. Just dropping small jigs into the fallen treetops.
Yeah, most of the trees are in 20 feet of water.
Yeah, they fall in and then they just sink to 20 feet down to the bottom, and walleyes will be sitting right in those things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the whole shoreline is like that. There's nothing in the middle.
Nope. No, basically all the structures are right on the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's got tulipies, nice crappies, bass, and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hardly anybody fishes that lake.
Mm-mm.
Very little pressure.
Yeah, you get 2 or 3 guys there in the winter, and if they make up the boat launch, which is pretty, it's pretty steep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of guys don't go there just for that reason.
Yep. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap her up here a little after 10. But yeah, I'm planning on hitting Lake Superior hopefully this weekend. I've only been up there once, and I caught a few fish, but it was slow. But my buddies have been getting out there, and it's been decent out there for the last couple weeks on some of that newer ice. So I'm gonna try and get up there and do some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to fire up the smoker this weekend. Maybe hit some tulipies or some whitefish, and then maybe hit Big Chautauqua or something. See what's going on up there. Just try something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tulipies are fun. If you can get on them, they're a blast. You gonna go to Mille Lacs for those, or you gonna stay around here?
I was thinking I was just gonna stay close to home. Maybe Balsam or Red Cedar.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Long Lake. Maybe.
Yeah.
Something not too far. My daughter's got basketball on Saturday, so I'll be doing that. But and then Sunday I'll be out again. So
I saw Scott Mackner's catching those giants on leech again. He's back.
I've done that during Eel Paw Fest. It's usually when they really.
Those tulipies are a different breed.
Dude, they're huge, like 20 inches. They're huge.
And they're fat, like deep bodies on them. I mean, they look insane. They look like whitefish.
Yeah. If you can't tell the difference, you wouldn't. I mean, you and I can't because of the nose,
Mm-hmm.
The face.
Yep.
The face is different.
But the body shape is just like a whitefish.
Dude, they're like when we were out there. I know we both got to go, but there was a guy in the middle of our group. There's 6 of us, I believe, and we were there for eel paw. Then we were, fishing for whitefish tulipy during the day, and he was ripping a doctor spoon.
Oh yeah.
On a 7-foot bass rod, and he had like a 1-foot leader with a fly on it, and he was out fishing all of us.
Yep, that's what the good guys do out there. They put a big old flashy thing on there with a little tiny jig and plastic or a fly dropper, and apparently the Cisco's are attracted to that big flash, and that's what Scott's been using too. He's been using a flasher.
Yeah, we were all catching them, but that dude, he caught the biggest ones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're setting the hook on a 7-foot medium heavy.
That's awesome. There's all kinds of ways to do it. Outdoors Muley says, good luck this weekend. S&I Vlogs, love your stuff, man. Keep it up. Go get that 40-inch Northern. I like the pike videos. Nice. Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to shut her down, get some sleep so we can go finish up the week of work and go fishing.
That's right. Happy to do so.
All right. See you guys. See you,
All right,
Dax.
guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Take care.